If you are 65 or older and you are still sitting behind the wheel, I genuinely need you to focus on what I am about to walk you through, because starting in 2026, the rules around keeping your driver's license are changing, and they are not changing at the same rate everywhere, which is exactly why so many older drivers are going to be caught completely off guard. There are 5 separate changes being rolled out across different states this year. 4 of them are things you absolutely need to understand before your next renewal arrives. And the 4th one, the one I am asking you to stay tuned for, is the one that can quietly take your license away before you even notice what has happened. But there is also genuinely good news woven throughout all of this. A change that actually benefits older drivers, and a way for many of you to complete your renewal from your own couch without ever setting foot inside a DMV office. So please do not click away, because by the time we are finished here, you are going to know exactly what is coming, exactly which of these situations applies to your circumstances, and exactly what steps you need to take for each one. And before anyone assumes this has nothing to do with them, let me be direct with you. It does not matter whether you are 62 or 85. It does not matter whether you have had a spotless driving record for the past 50 years. These changes are structured around age and around renewal dates. And every single person watching this video is going to reach a renewal date sooner than they currently expect. So this is meant for you. And honestly, it is meant for anyone you care about who is still out there on the road, because the overwhelming majority of them have absolutely no idea any of this is underway. Now, let me tell you a little about who I am so you understand why I am the one guiding you through this. My name is June. I am an estate attorney, and for over 15 years, my entire professional life has been spent carefully reading the dense technical language that government agencies and departments rely on ordinary people never bothering to examine, and then translating that language into clear, everyday terms so that families can protect what rightfully belongs to them. And a driver's license for an older adult is not some insignificant piece of laminated plastic. It is your independence. It is how you get to your medical appointments, how you spend time with your grandchildren, how you pick up your own groceries without needing to ask anyone for assistance. So when the regulations surrounding that license start to shift, I pay very close attention, and I believe you should as well. Here is the first thing you need to understand, and it is the thing that cuts straight through all the alarming content you may have already come across online. There is no new federal law prohibiting older adults from driving. Anyone telling you that the government has just passed a nationwide rule pulling licenses from everyone over 70 is either uninformed or deliberately trying to frighten you. That is simply not how it works, and it never has been. In this country, your driver's license is governed by your individual state, not by Washington. That is actually a favorable thing because it means you are not subject to one single broad sweeping regulation. But it is also precisely why this entire situation is so confusing, because it means the rules differ depending on where you live, and a significant number of states are tightening those rules in 2026. So what I have done is work through them carefully and identify the 5 changes that carry the most consequence, the ones appearing repeatedly as these states revise their regulations. Let us go through them one by one. The first change is the vision screening requirement at renewal, and this is the one that catches the largest number of people off guard because it sounds minor, and it absolutely is not. Right now, 41 states already require some form of vision evaluation when you renew your license, but the age at which that screening is triggered is dropping in many locations, and in certain states, it now begins at 65. Think about that for just a moment. In states like Arizona, Ohio, Oregon, South Dakota, and Utah, the moment you step into your mid-60s, a vision check becomes a mandatory part of every renewal appointment. In Georgia, it begins even earlier, at 64. Other states set that threshold in your late 60s or 70s, and a few, like Florida, hold off until you reach 80. But here is why this carries so much weight. Most older adults have absolutely no idea their state added this requirement, so they walk in to renew exactly the way they always have, and suddenly there is an eye chart in front of them that they had no reason to anticipate. And if you do not pass it that day, you do not walk out with your license. You walk out with a restriction or a referral or a temporary permit and a problem that now needs to be resolved. Your actual eyesight is rarely the real issue. The real issue is being caught completely unprepared for it. Let me paint a picture of how this actually plays out. Imagine a woman named Margaret, 71 years old, who has renewed her license in the same straightforward way for many years. She drives over on her lunch break, expecting 5 minutes and a fresh photograph. Instead, she is confronted with an eye chart. She is tired. The lighting in the room is dim, and she misses a line she probably would have read without difficulty on a better morning. Now, rather than walking out with a renewed license, she is handed a form and told to come back with documentation from an eye doctor. Suddenly, she is operating on a temporary permit, feeling anxious, scheduling appointments, and wondering if something is medically wrong with her when the actual truth is that she was simply never told the rule had changed. That is the entire danger here. Not your vision, the ambush itself. So the single most practical thing I can share with you about change number 1 is this. Before your renewal appointment, find out whether your state currently tests vision at your age. And if it does, schedule your own eye exam in advance at your own pace, calmly, so that piece is already handled before you ever walk through the office door. Walk in already knowing you have cleared that hurdle, and the entire appointment becomes nothing more than a photograph and a signature. The second change is that a growing number of states now require you to appear in person once you reach a certain age, and they are eliminating the convenient options you may have depended on for years. For a long time, most people could renew a license through the mail or online without ever leaving home. But right now, 17 states plus the District of Columbia block online or mail-in renewal for older drivers and require a physical in-person visit instead. Arizona starts that in-person requirement at 65. Texas requires it once you turn 79. The reason states put this in place is that appearing in person allows them to conduct the vision screening, capture a current photograph, and in some cases take an informal look at whether you appear steady and clear-minded. Now, I am not raising this to alarm you. For the majority of you, an in-person renewal is simply a minor inconvenience, an afternoon and a wait in line. But you absolutely need to know it is coming. Because if you are someone who has always just clicked a button online every few years, and you assume you can do the same thing again, you may discover at the worst possible moment that your state now says no, you need to come in here in person, and by that point, your renewal window may already be shrinking fast. Knowing the rule ahead of time transforms a potential crisis into a simple errand. I think of a gentleman named Harold, 79 years old, living in a state that had just moved its in-person age requirement to exactly 79. He tried 3 times to renew online, received an error message each time, concluded the website was experiencing technical difficulties, and kept putting it off. By the time he called and learned he was now required to appear in person, his license had been expired for 11 days. And an expired license is not something you can simply brush aside. In most states, the day your license runs out, you are no longer legally permitted to drive, which means your automobile insurance may not cover you if anything happens, and a routine traffic stop can escalate into a citation. Harold did absolutely nothing wrong except assume the rules were the same as they had always been. Do not be Harold. The moment you know an in-person renewal is required, you plan accordingly. You choose your day and you show up before the deadline, not after it. The third change is that the renewal cycle itself is becoming shorter as you age, which means you are going to be dealing with all of this far more frequently than you previously did. When you were younger, your license was probably valid for 8, 10, or even 12 years at a time, a stretch long enough to make you nearly forget the DMV exists. But these states are compressing that window considerably for older drivers. In Arizona, once you reach 65, your license must be renewed every 5 years, rather than the 12 years that younger drivers receive. In Texas, drivers 85 and older renew every 2 years. In Illinois, drivers between 81 and 86 renew every 2 years, and once you cross into 87, it becomes every single year. Florida shortens the cycle as well, down to every 6 years once you reach 80. Now, why does this matter to you today? Because every one of those shortened cycles is another occasion where the vision screening and the in-person requirement get applied to you all over again. A longer license used to mean you were evaluated once per decade. A shorter license means you are back in that office far more frequently, and each visit is another opportunity for something to go sideways if you have not prepared. And there is a quieter trap buried inside this particular change. When your license was valid for a decade, you could safely let it drift to the back of your mind. But when it renews every 2 years or every single year once you are well into your late 80s, the odds that one of those renewal dates slips past you increase with every cycle. A senior who renewed back in 2014 and barely thought about it afterward is now suddenly facing a renewal in 2026 and another in 2028 and another after that. Each one carrying the vision test and the in-person requirement right along with it. So the message on change number 3 is simple. Do not assume your license lasts as long as it once did. Take your actual card out of your wallet right now. Look at the expiration date printed on it. Put that date on your calendar and in your phone, because the gap between renewals is narrowing at precisely the moment the requirements are becoming stricter, and the people who get caught are almost always the ones still operating on the old longer timeline in their heads. Now stay with me because here comes the 4th change, and this is the one I mentioned at the very beginning of this video that can genuinely cost you your license. This is the medical incompetency review process. And it is the one that raises the most concern because it is the single point where you can go from being a fully licensed driver to a restricted or suspended one in a single appointment. Here is what is unfolding. More states are building in a step where once you reach a certain age, or once someone raises a concern, you are required to demonstrate that you are still capable of safely operating a vehicle. And this is not something hypothetical for 2026. In Illinois, beginning July 1st of 2026, drivers who are 87 and older must actively demonstrate their ability to safely operate a motor vehicle in order to complete their renewal. On top of that, most states already have what is commonly referred to as a medical review or referral process, where a physician, a law enforcement officer, or in some cases even a family member can formally flag a driver. And once you are flagged, you may be required to complete a vision exam, a written knowledge test, a road test, or a full medical evaluation in order to continue driving. And here is the detail that almost nobody understands until it has already happened to them. If you receive one of those notices in the mail, and you ignore it or you miss the response deadline, your license can be automatically suspended. Not because you failed any test, because you did not respond. That is how responsible, careful drivers lose their licenses, not by causing an accident, but by discarding an official envelope they mistakenly assumed was junk mail. And I want you to truly consider how easily that happens, because these agencies do not deliver that notice by special courier with a warning label on top. It arrives as an ordinary white envelope mixed in among the grocery circulars and the credit card promotions on a busy afternoon, and ends up in the stack that gets tossed out. 3 weeks later, there is a follow-up letter that also goes unread, and by the time a family member realizes something has gone wrong, the license is already suspended, and now you are trying to reverse a situation that demands far more time, far more paperwork, and far more stress than simply reading the first letter would have ever required. I have watched families navigate exactly this scenario, and the frustrating part is that the person almost always had every right to keep their license with room to spare. They simply never opened the envelope that told them how to do it. So the guidance on number 4 is the most critical piece of advice in this entire video. If anything arrives from your state's licensing agency, you open it the same day it lands in your mailbox. You read through it carefully and you do precisely what it instructs by the date it specifies. Do not allow a missed deadline to strip away the independence you have built over a lifetime of responsible driving. All right, take a breath, because now I get to deliver the good news I promised you earlier, and it is genuinely encouraging. The 5th change is that many states are actually making the process easier, not harder, to handle from home, provided you know the one step that unlocks that option. Here is what that step is. In many states that would otherwise require older drivers to appear in person for a vision screening, you can bypass that trip entirely by simply having your own eye doctor complete a vision report and submit it ahead of your renewal. Florida allows drivers 80 and older to renew online as long as an eye doctor submits their vision results electronically beforehand. Colorado permits drivers 80 and older to renew online as well, provided you supply a signed eye examination report from your optometrist or ophthalmologist completed within 6 months of your renewal date. Do you see what that means? The very requirement that sends some older drivers into a lengthy DMV line is the same requirement you can satisfy at your regular eye doctor's office on your own schedule, and then complete your renewal sitting right at your kitchen table. And there is one more piece of genuinely encouraging news, particularly for our friends in Illinois. For years, Illinois was the only state that required drivers to take a road test simply as a function of age, beginning at 75. Starting in July of 2026, that road test age threshold is being raised all the way up to 87. That is a meaningful improvement for hundreds of thousands of older drivers who were being sent out for a road test they simply did not need. So, no, this is not entirely discouraging news. Some of these changes represent the system finally becoming a bit more reasonable and a bit more accommodating, if you understand how to take advantage of them. So let me bring all of this together into what you actually do with it. Because knowing the 5 changes is only worthwhile if it leads to a handful of concrete actions. First, find out your own state's specific rules for your age group. Every state has a driver services or motor vehicle division website, and every one of them lays out the renewal age requirements, the vision screening rules, and whether online renewal is an available option for you. 10 minutes on that page or a single phone call tells you exactly which of these 5 changes apply directly to your situation. Second, schedule your vision exam early and on your own terms before your renewal date arrives, so you are never blindsided by an unexpected eye chart. Third, ask your eye doctor whether they are able to submit your vision report directly to the state on your behalf, because that one question is what unlocks the ability to renew from home in many locations. Fourth, and I cannot stress this strongly enough, open every single piece of mail from your licensing agency the day it comes through your door and act on it right away, because a missed deadline is the single fastest path to losing a license you have every right to hold on to. And fifth, mark your actual renewal date on your calendar today, right now, because these compressed cycles mean it is approaching more quickly than you are probably remembering. I have spent many years helping older adults and their families protect the things that genuinely matter. And if there is one consistent lesson I have taken from all of it, it is that the people who maintain their independence the longest are simply the ones who see changes coming and prepare for them rather than being blindsided by them. And driving represents just one part of a much broader picture. So many of you have reached out asking me to gather the practical guidance I cover on this channel, the deadlines, the documents, the exemptions, and the financial moves that protect older Americans, into one accessible place. So I did exactly that. It is called the Senior Money Playbook, and it covers the benefits, the tax advantages, and the legal protections that most older adults never learn about until the opportunity has already passed. All written in plain language, designed for you, not for legal professionals. If that sounds like something you would find valuable, the link is waiting for you in the description below, and it is there to help you hold on to more of what you have worked for. Let me leave you with this thought. Your driver's license is more than a card you carry around in your wallet. It is your freedom to live your own life on your own terms. And nobody should lose that freedom over a regulation they never knew existed, or a letter they never took the time to open. States are tightening these requirements quietly and without much public announcement. But now, you are not among the people who gets caught off guard. You know the vision screening is coming. You know that certain renewals must now be completed in person. You know the cycles are getting shorter. You know that an unanswered medical notice is where the real danger lies. And you know the single step that allows many of you to renew without ever leaving your home. Now here is what I want you to do with everything you just heard. This information can only protect the people who actually receive it. So if it was valuable to you, pass it along to another driver you care about, a husband or wife, a neighbor down the street, a brother or sister, anyone who is still on the road and has no idea these changes are already here, because you could very well be the reason they keep their license rather than losing it. And when you look up your own state's rules this week, come back and share in the comments which of these 5 changes surprised you most and which state you are writing from, because so many of these details shift from one state to the next. Subscribe because clear and straightforward answers about protecting your money, your home, and your independence are exactly what this channel is built around. Drive safely. Protect everything that is yours.